Okay, good morning all members, and welcome to the first meeting of the Communities Committee following local government election last month. I would like particularly welcome new members who are on this committee for the first time, some old hands here, and we'll make sure everybody gets a fair share, a fair crack. Just to make sure we are all aware, my style of chairing is we'll take first time speakers and then move round the room, so no one member will be allowed to hog the questions. I think that's the fairest, most sensible way of doing it, and that's how we have intend to chair the meetings. Just a one wee thing I have to say is before we start the business, I think we need to acknowledge the work of Tom McCottery, who's now no longer with us. Tom was a very effective chairman, had a unique style, I think, would be fair to say, but he always kept the business moving along quickly, sometimes too quickly. But it'd be important to acknowledge that under Tom, this committee led some key policy developments in the last council, like the community asset transfer and the community participation and engagement models that we're currently working with, and the ward working model. So I think everybody should wish him well in his retirement. Okay. Now, just there's a couple of quick things. There will be a short meet the team immediately after this committee. Rather than put it at the start, we'll put it at the end. I'm urging everybody to stay, particularly the new guys. Meet them, find out their areas of expertise, where they work, how they can help you, and I think it'll be invaluable for you. So that's immediately after this is finished. And there's one last thing before we move on to the thing. Derek, there's a wee comment on the papers first.
Thank you, Chairman. Morning, members. Some of you may have noticed, eagle-eyed, the fact that you're all here demonstrates it's not a problem, but you'll see on your covering sheet, we indicate the committee is on Wednesday. Well, we all know it's on Tuesday. You'll also notice that some of us have got the traditional colour, some of us have got the lighter green. The simple reality was, as you'll appreciate, the staff resource in the lead up to the election has been significantly challenged. It's been a massive effort for council staff, and quite simply, there have been just huge challenges to overcome, and therefore on that basis, to get the committee papers out, the staff actually worked at 7 o'clock at night last week because there was challenges at the print unit in the lead up to the election. So apologies if there are any errors. That's the explanation, and it's purely and simply down to resource capacity. So once again, apologies. Thank you, Chairman.
Thanks, Derek. Now, moving on to business, I'd just like to remind the old hands and inform the newbies that this meeting will be recorded, and the recording will subsequently be available for the public listening. So I just ask if we have a vote that you actually use your red button so that it can be recorded in due deference to the public, so that they can actually hear their representative voting rather than having to try and work it out later on. So it's I think maybe a common decency thing if we can do that. Okay. So let's move on to the Sederunt apologies. Claire.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. We've got 19 members present this morning. Apologies from Councillor Maitland. Councillor Ronnie is currently not present.
Thank you. Ian?
Councillor Ronnie is apologies.
Thanks very much, Ian. Item 2, have we any declarations of interest? Right, thank you. Move on to item 3, the minute of the meeting of 7th of March. This is purely for noting the minutes have been approved at full council on 28th of March. So it's prove the procedural thing just now at this moment in time. Okay, agreed? Thank you. Move on to item 4 in the agenda proper. Delegation to Communities Committee, report by Director Corporate Services. The purpose of the report is to provide information on the delegation to this committee as agreed by full council, and is for noting purposes. Derek, the Director, will take any questions on the report. Have you any to add, Derek?
Nothing to add, Chairman.
Okay, I'll open it up. Ian?
Thanks, Chairman. I see it's pretty much just for noting, really, but I suppose the one thing that I would pick up from this, as a new member and being a member of the Economy, Environment and Infrastructure and the Housing Committee, see that there's something new there in regards to the housing, I would feel quite strongly in it if maybe have a discussion, that maybe whether it's here or whether it's later on, but I think should we be looking at the same as the Economy, Environment and Infrastructure Committee, maybe pick that up on I am on the review standing orders as well, but I think this maybe needs its own subcommittee, even if it is of communities, but I'd just like to put that out there as a kind of starter for and see how we feel.
Obviously, you, Chairman, thanks Councillor Carruthers. That's a matter for members to determine. At this stage, these matters have all been delegated to a Communities Committee. If the review of Standing Orders Subcommittee wishes to review these arrangements, and that's within the gift of members, officers are more than happy to accommodate that, but certainly at this stage, the Communities Committee will deal with all of the matters within them just now, and the establishment of subcommittees can obviously happen if it's the wish of this committee on an ad hoc basis, but primarily any standing subcommittees would be a matter for the subcommittee and ultimately full council.
You okay with that, Ian? We'll take it through the normal process. Okay, thank you. Anyone else? No, in that case then, we'll just move on to recommendations. Are we asked to note the remit? Thanks, John. Agreed. Thank you. On to item 5, the Tackling Poverty in Dumfries and Galloway report by Head of Customer Services. Tackling the causes and effects of inequality and poverty are a key commitment of our Council. The report before us today provides members with an overview of arrangements in place to effectively tackle poverty in our region. I'm particularly pleased to note the arrangements we are putting in place for National Challenge Poverty Week in October. The conference will highlight our plans to tackle poverty, as well as many initiatives and projects that are being delivered across Dumfries and Galloway. Harry Hay is here to take any questions on the report, and I think Wendy Jessen is also in attendance. Have you anything to add, Harry? Okay, Graham.
Thanks, Chair. Obviously, quite a comprehensive report about tackling poverty in Dumfries and Galloway. Obviously, there's not much here about rural poverty. Was ever discussed about rural poverty at your meetings in October there, 2017? You know, there's a lot of people in the rural areas are in poverty, farm workers, gamekeepers, people working in agriculture and forestry. Has there been much consultation done with these groups?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, obviously, with Dumfries and Galloway being a very rural area, it would be a miss of us if we didn't highlight the issues that derive from that. And I think the mapping exercise that's been completed, that we're reporting back to the August committee with the refreshed action plan, will very much deal with that. I think it's about income. I think it's about the fuel poverty in many of the rural areas. We've certainly picked up that simply due to the lack of availability of mains gas, for example, that some households struggle with that. So that will certainly be something that's a feature of the subsequent report.
Okay, Sean?
Yeah, just in relation to 3.9, I mean, the Council should be commended through the area committees for actually dispersing the £350,000 for the local anti-poverty fund as quickly as we did. Just really to note, in my region, there's £7,866 still remaining within the Andale and Estill area committee. We would expect that to be taken up in the, in the next round of applications into that area committee.
Harry?
Yes, indeed. I mean, I think it was a good collective team effort from elected members and indeed the staff that supported the administration of it, and we would certainly anticipate that small balance would be disbursed in full.
Jim?
It's just a question, and Harry just piqued my interest. If we're acknowledging that the lack of mains gas contributes to fuel poverty, are we working with Scottish Gas to try and encourage them to expand their network, or are we just simply acknowledging that that's a situation that exists locally?
Thanks, Chair. Certainly, previous reports to the previously mentioned Housing Subcommittee looked at the issue of fuel poverty and our approach to it, and certainly we have contributed to lobbying, if you like, in terms of the impact of that. So it's certainly something that we're very aware of, I think we need to be realistic about what as a local authority we can do to get mains gas into a lot of the very, very particularly isolated rural areas, but certainly it's something that we're wanting to try and keep a watchful eye on.
Andrew?
Thank you, Chair. Within this, do we actually capture social poverty? Most of this report is based on financial, but there is also this social dimension of isolation. Do we get to a good handle on that, and are we able to monitor it?
Thanks, Chair. Yes, I think one of the key bits of work that the reference group that's mentioned in the report is looking at is issues surrounding barriers to participation, confidence building, capacity, etc. And one thing we are getting very loud and clear is that if somebody's in what could be described as that revolving door of poverty, it could just be self-esteem and confidence that's an issue. And one of the areas of focus for the reference group is to try and ensure that we're listening to people that are in that situation firsthand, and we're able to make those services a lot more accessible. We've already had very good feedback from members of the reference group in that we're looking now to try and get to the stage where they're perhaps focusing on formal qualifications to try and get routes back into employment, etc. So absolutely, it's not just financial. There's a whole range of different, very complex factors that are at play when people are dealing with poverty in the widest sense. Could be isolation due to the rural nature of their, where they stay, but equally somebody could feel very isolated in a larger community. So that's something certainly we need to really focus on.
Ian?
Thanks, Chairman. I do think this is a good report. It left a lot of questions in my mind in regards to how much is it costing compared to the return on what do we actually get back for that. But clearly it was outlined right at the very end. It says the detailed costs will come back and we'll get a further report which will detail all that information, which is great. But I suppose, I mean, haven't got any issues with the report at all, really. If we see that benefit, we need to be able to see that benefit. So look forward to certainly the report in August and further the actual conference or the summit that we talk about in regards to progressing this. So how do we actually see, Chairman, I suppose what I'm trying to establish, how will we actually see that benefit? How will we see, say, for instance, if it's fuel poverty, say, are people getting better heating, what's the benefit to them through their less energy bills, or if it's somebody, I mean, I've got a constituent at this moment in time who's found themselves in a position where through no cause of their own, the partner found themselves in a medical condition with then there was a lot of costs incurred with that, and now this person found himself in a lot of debt and a CLA intervention. They've got children, partners passed away. Really uncomfortable position for themselves, but I would imagine this will tackle that type of poverty as well. It's people in real deprivation, really suffering at a particular moment in time. So try to understand how this whole strategy will tackle that type of poverty, right again across the board, Chairman.
Just before I let Harry in, absolutely, Ian, you're picking up some stuff in the Great Joint Board. I can see that. So the assurance is that there will be a report coming back on a regular basis on how we monitor and evaluate the outcomes. But like things like public health, for example, some of the things will be a longer term process, and will obviously there won't be an immediate benefit, and it will be years down the road where you'll see some benefit. But if Harry's got anything to add to that.
Yeah, thanks very much, Chair. There's absolutely no doubt that dealing with poverty in the widest sense is a hugely complex subject matter, and I think on a national basis, Dumfries and Galloway is really starting to get a name for itself in terms of the proactive approach we're taking. We're one of the first local authorities in Scotland to have a dedicated tackling poverty officer, for example, and Wendy's here this morning. And I think one of the issues we're really trying to focus on is taking an evidence-based approach to dealing with these issues. If we're going to put resources and investment into areas, we really need to make sure that it's going to have the desired outcomes that we anticipate. And we're looking at a range of both qualitative and quantitative information that would tell us exactly that impact. And I believe that one of the best ways you can find out whether it's having a difference is ask the people that are actually hopefully benefiting from the services that are being provided. And that's one of the reasons we've got the reference group in place, that we're wanting to deal with people who have got that lived experience in poverty, and we ask them, you know, we've got a programme of customer journeys, for example. We then ensure we go back to either partners, the council commission, or other council services and say, look, this is coming from people who have actually experienced your service firsthand. They're maybe in a bit of a difficult place. This is what their thoughts are, and we really want to try and drive that change. In terms of the sort of the wider issues, the council's reshape programme, particularly within communities, is very much focused on this priority. Part of my structure changes has been about trying to create better synergies between revenues, between benefits, between poverty, between homelessness, because they're all fundamentally linked. And we're already starting to see a better situation whereby people are put from pillar to post less. If they're entitled to information or entitled to advice, then they should get that at the first point of contact. They shouldn't have to go to different parts of the council to get that. So it's absolutely crucial for me is to make sure that we can come back to members and clearly evidence the impact we are having short, medium and long term. Thanks, Chair.
Everybody, in that case then we'll move on to recommendations. We're asked to, 1, note the current projects and initiatives which are being implemented to deliver Council's anti-poverty strategy and action plan. We agreed? Thank you. 2, agreed to organise the Tackling Poverty in Dumfries and Galloway Conference. I agree to a report being submitted to this committee on the 31st of August, which will provide detailed recommendations in relation to the refreshed action plan. All this funding, apart from the Annandale and Esdale, has now been committed. We've got 1, 2, that's 3, 4. The 5th bit is to actually to agree to receive recommendations for members' consideration to this committee. So are we happy to agree with them? Yep, thank you. Thanks very much. We'll move on to item 6, the Gypsy Travellers and the Dumfries and Galloway report by Head of Customer Services. The report provides members with an overview of the current management arrangements for the Council's service provision to Gypsy stroke travellers residing in this region. The Council operates 2 Gypsy stroke traveller sites and is committed to ensuring we adopt the national guidance on the minimum standards for these sites. The report provides members with an indication of the early actions that have been implemented to achieve this. Again, Harry is here to take any questions, and I've got Jim O'Neill and Jamie Little also here if we need anything here. Harry, have you anything to add to your report at this moment in time?
No, hopefully it's self-explanatory, Chair, but we're happy to take any questions.
It's just more of a comment really on paragraph 3.5, the early actions. I think the Council has been very proactive on that, and also paragraph 3.6 in re-establishing the Gypsy Traveller Liaison Group. It's just, I think we're being very positive on those counts.
Thank you. I don't think it needs a response. Thanks for that comment. Graham?
Thanks, Chair. Obviously, in 3.6, your last meeting for the Gypsy Traveller Liaison Group was on the 21st of April. How often are you having these meetings and that? Because we're seeing more Gypsy travellers going around the countryside. I recently spoke to a couple of constituents recently, had stuff stolen and stuff damaged, and they failed to report it to Police Scotland. So obviously Police Scotland are investigating crimes in the rural areas and within the crimes of the site, but they're not recording this, so it's given poor figures to Police Scotland. So how often are these your group setting up, and how often are you engaging with these partners like the community safety team, local community? Are you listening? And the local police, how often are you engaging with these groups? Because we are seeing them about. 3 weeks ago, recently I had them in the farm, prowling around the sheds at my farm, and they're on the prowl. So they're on the prowl in the rural areas. So how often are you engaging with them, and how often are you actually engaging with the police to see that we're actually stopping them in their tracks? And also as well, as a private landowner in the past, it was very difficult to get them off the ground being a private landowner, but what powers have I got to get them off private land as well? Kindly answer these 2 questions.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I'll just come in a second. I think we need to be clear and be careful. Every person in Scotland's got a right to presumed innocence. So we can't blame a group of people because something's been stolen without evidence. So I'll just caution. Now,
there was evidence in this one.
Well, they should be prosecuted, and that's a police matter, not for this committee. Jim,
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Meetings of the Gypsy Traveller Liaison Group are scheduled to take place on a quarterly basis. However, at the last meeting of the group, we recognised that unauthorised encampments can occur at any time and are pretty unpredictable in their nature. So we sought agreement at the first meeting that an ad hoc meeting could be called as and when required. And basically, if the issue of unauthorised encampments occurs, we would respond to that almost immediately and convene a meeting out with the planned schedule of meetings so that we were able to demonstrate that we provide an effective and speedy response. And I think that's important in terms of reassuring local communities and local people that we're ready and able to deal with the problem. In terms of unauthorised encampments and where they occur, by their very nature, they occur anywhere. They sometimes take place in council land, but they also take place on private land. When it takes place in council land, or when they occur in council land, the council has the legal responsibility to deal with that. However, when they occur on land that's in private ownership, it's actually the landowner that has the legal responsibility to deal with that. And we've got examples recently where encampments have taken place at Heath Hall, for example, in the industrial estate up there, and the landowner has responded fairly quickly to move the unauthorised encampments on. However, as a local authority, we do engage with the people that form those unauthorised encampments wherever they occur, and we encourage them to make application onto the council sites. We ensure that they have adequate facilities where they are located, and we try and establish how long they intend to stay, and we encourage them to move on as quickly as possible. So even where they occur in private land, there's very early engagement to ensure that it doesn't become a long-standing feature, and the members of the unauthorised encampments are aware that there's an expectation that they move on quickly.
Just a point of clarity, obviously you mentioned there about the camps and the private landowners and council land, so you have more powers to get them off council land, remove the encampment of council land. You're trying to tell me that private landowners, the process is slightly delayed, am I right in believing? Or am I picked it up wrong?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I wouldn't have described the council as having more powers, it's just different responsibilities when they occur. Basically, there's a legal process that has to be followed to ensure that Gypsy traveller communities are moved on under the terms of existing legislation. So whether it be the council or a private landowner, there is a legal process to be followed, and it's basically up to the landowner to secure an eviction decree to remove the unauthorised encampment from their land. So it's a similar process, it's just the responsibility is different depending on where they occur.
Thanks. You okay with that, Graham? Yeah, just a second, Ian. Andrew and then Ian.
I must say I find it actually a very positive report, and I'm delighted that you have done the improvements that you're doing within these campsites. The one thing I would like to ask, though, and that is, how do we deal with the various factions within the Gypsy society as such? And my understanding is that a lot of the unauthorised sites that we get is due to the factions, and if you have a certain family on one of our council sites, it sort of it displaces others from going on to our campsite, and I just wondered how we deal with that. Can we segregate within our own site, or what the options open to us?
I don't think what the council probably to go into a segregation now. We've enough problems with hard borders and the rest as just now. But Jim.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Section 3.1 of the report kind of describes the broad groups of people that do come under the kind of generic heading of Gypsy travellers, and quite clearly they're not a homogenous group. In terms of managing the sites, what we do is we go through a process of uptaking references before applicants are permitted onto the site, in the same way that a registered social landlord would before allocating social housing. So we want to make sure that the people that apply have a good tenancy history, and that can be evidenced. The recent problems that have taken place at Cullen, for example, have been where Gypsy travellers have actually broken onto the site and made their way through the perimeter fence at the site. Now, that's not something that we can control, but again, that goes back to the necessity to take very swift and decisive action to deal with it. And when that happened on the site at Cullen, for example, that did cause a degree of displacement on the site, but as a local authority, we worked with colleagues in legal services to get the appropriate eviction decrees to remove the families concerned on. And I would say that over the last few weeks, the site has been more settled than it has been for several months, and we hope to be able to maintain that. The key in terms of providing reassurance to the local community and to the whole Gypsy traveller community is that the council won't tolerate inappropriate behaviour on the sites, and we've got to be seen to deal quickly and effectively with situations where that occurs. But I think it's fair to say that the same standards of behaviour are expected from the Gypsy traveller community as we would from the settled community. And one of the kind of key things that we're trying to do is build up that relationship again between particularly at Cullen, where most of the difficulties have occurred, between the site and the local community, because we recognise absolutely that there's been a lot of stress and pressure created there, and we're hoping that by working with the local community as well as with the Gypsy traveller community, that we'll be able to build up a better climate of trust again, and a better ability to work together to try and achieve good outcomes for both communities.
Thanks, Chairman. I'm okay with this report, absolutely fine. A couple of things is as far as 2.3, it looks at a report coming back, I think is it in October. I just wonder, will it look at capacity as well? Have we got the right level of capacity in Dumfries and Galloway over the two sites? That's one thing. And how much, and as far as the improvements, it refers to a different report. How much will that cost? I just wasn't sure by the other report how much that would cost.
I'm looking at the three officers. That the report coming back will have a full breakdown, I would suggest. That's all doable, and you're quite right, it should be in any future report, so we know the full picture. The only thing I've just got to suggest in this whole process here, the new, which was cross-party legislation, by the way, I know that it's apolitical, but that new legislation expects equality of treatment and standards of behaviours, and I think it's important that this report and the process we're taking forward actually it meets that, and I'm pleased to hear actually we've got a really reasoned, sensible debate about this morning, discussion about this morning, because this could has the potential for being something different. So I commend you for that, Sean. Sorry.
I mean, take your answer as being the first part, but just how much does it cost? It's referred to saying that the cost for this is in the next report. I couldn't pick up exactly how much that was, either 85 or 185k. That's what I'm just looking for that answer as well, please.
Well, that's some saying everything will be fully costed in the report coming back, because obviously we can't expect people to do it today.
The next report on the agenda item, it's actually contained within here today, Chairman. That's what I'm asking. So the figure, I would imagine they'll have it in their head. I'm
going to ask officers to respond with their head today. We're dealing with the papers in front of us.
Chair, all I would say is that there's been that figure allocated to date that's covered in the next report. However, as the report also details, this report details, there's a full condition survey currently being arranged, and that will detail the comprehensive costs, and that's what will be brought back to members for their consideration.
That's right, so it's not available at this point? No, work's still to be done. So I've got Sean and then David, yeah.
It was just in relation to the Grahams. If he does see suspicious characters, if constituents do see them, prowling around farms, then should really contact the police just to kind of make sure. Because if it was in the last couple of months, it might have been something harmless like Tory election candidates or things like that that were just going about the farms.
Thanks for that. I'll just take that as a comment. And I'm sure that you and the Honourable Member for North West Dumfries can sort that out yourselves later. David, you've got a question, yeah?
Yes, thank you, Chair. As I understand it, we're going to get figures for the cost of running these Gypsy facilities and travellers. Could I ask what we charge them, and are we going to recoup as much as we're investing there?
Jim?
Yep, thanks, Chair. The current weekly charge is somewhere in the region of £64 a week, but the level of capital investment, while we don't know the precise figure, is likely to be significant. There's a meeting arranged with Property and Architectural Services for Wednesday of this week to agree the parameters of the survey. But what we need to do is achieve a statutory regulatory standard. So there's very little discretion in terms of what we can provide as a local authority. But given the number of pitches that we have and the income that is able to be generated from that, it is likely the cost of carrying out improvements will need to be met through a capital bid to the Council's capital fund going forward, because the sites haven't been substantially upgraded for a number of years, and it is likely that there will be a significant upgrade required.
Yes, please. So will we be able to then calculate what we should be charging them to recoup our investment?
I'll just ask the director to come in, but that's not normally our intention, because if we applied that principle to everything we did, we would have huge or humongous charges depending on what facilities we're building or upgrading. Sometimes our role here is to facilitate and provide, not always to make a profit or to break even. Sometimes we just have to face up to facts that some facilities, what we're dealing here is, I would suggest, is a systemic lack of investment over a considerable period of time, and that is probably why there's got to be a more significant amount of money. But I'll let Derek come in.
No, thank you, Chairman. You've covered it very well. Put simply, there are two aspects to this. There are the revenue considerations, which quite clearly we recoup annual income from providing the service, and the officers provided that information, and as part of the October report will reaffirm that. However, what is quite clear is there is a national commitment to this direction of travel. This council needs to embrace that direction of travel, and to do so, we need to upgrade these sites. As the Chairman has said, there's been a systemic underinvestment for a number of years, and that therefore will be a capital requirement rather than a revenue requirement, and that will be something that members consider in due course. As the officer has indicated, at this point we have not got a definitive figure on what that capital figure will be, but quite clearly that will be something the Council, when it is available, will have to determine, but it will determine it in the context of the policy requirements that, as I understand it, was agreed cross-party in the Scottish Parliament.
Just a second, please. Yeah. So can we take that the 19th of October report will have some information for us on this? Right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So it's actually part of the recommendations, David. It will be reported back in October, because it's got to take some time to pull together. I mean, have you another question on the same issue, or is it something?
No, so just to clarify there, our intention is to recoup the running cost then through the amount we charge, but not the capital cost.
I can categorically assure you we will recoup what we can, right? But as I said to you earlier, right, if we set that precedent, we would actually be putting a chain around our neck, because we'd have to apply it to every single thing we did as a council, and that clearly isn't acceptable. Sometimes we just have to accept that it actually takes money to set something up over a longer term. It's building stuff for the future, and that's it. Yep.
Thank you, Chairman. I think what we need to be very clear about, the next report will pick this up, that Council's income is very volatile. People can choose to use our services or not, and quite clearly people choose to use these sites. So in simple terms, if less people choose to use them, that affects the income that's recovered. So there's a whole number of factors here that need to be borne in mind, not just specific to this service, but as the chairman has indicated, the level of usage of all whole number of services are dependent upon public demand, public usage, and these vary quite considerably. So unfortunately, for officers, that requires considerable accountancy management, but also an acceptance that it's certainly not a science, it's an art, and we are dealing with complex issues. Quite clearly, the principle we always work to is ensuring we maximise the income, but there are clear constraints in doing so. And I'm sure members are familiar with that in terms of some of the challenges we've dealt with over the last few years.
Thanks, Graham. Thanks, Derek. Ian, I think I'll take that as the last one because I think we're kind of this out. And can we make sure that it's to do with what's on the agenda, because not what's in the future? I think we've spent some time.
I think the point was clarified by Derek at the end there when he said it's to, we'll look at maximising any potential income from that to the best of our ability. But I mean, I think David's question was specific about would we look to, would the council's intention be to recoup the cost or not? He wasn't advocating a particular position. He was only asking that simple question: would we or would we not? But Derek's quite clearly outlined we'd look to maximise any potential revenue from that. So I think that answers it, Chairman.
I'm going to move to the recommendations. Okay, we're asked to note, 1, the actions that have been taken to improve the service delivery and physical conditions on the Gypsy stroke traveller sites. Happy to note. Thank you. And 2, note the Council's approach to dealing with unauthorised encampments of Gypsy travellers that can occur throughout the region. Thank you. And 3, agree that an improvement plan be developed for the Council's Gypsy traveller sites and reported back to the 19th October 2017 meeting of this committee. Can we just maybe add in there, and that will also include some of the stuff, the questions that were... Yeah, okay, thank you. Moving on to item 7, the revenue budget. The report provides members with the final outturn information in relation to the community's budget for 2016-17. I'm sure that all members will welcome the report. I would wish to acknowledge the achievement of the management team who have been successful in delivering agreed savings measures for 2016-17, whilst also returning a budget underspend. Under the Council's budget flexibility scheme, the service can retain some or all of this underspend for specific purposes, and the proposals for this are before members today. Derek will take any questions, and I think Kirk is here as well. Welcome, Kirk. And Derek, first to you.
Nothing to add, Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, I'll open it up for questions. Ian?
We'll just come back to the point I was trying to make earlier, but in paragraph 3.11, it refers to £185,000 there. In table 2, it refers to 85,000 in there. In the previous report, you could probably put that in some kind of context. What are these monies for? One refers to 185, one refers to 85. Looks like to me it's for the same thing. Maybe it's not. If we could get that outlined, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Certainly paragraph 3, the table in table 2, certainly the 85 refers to the travelling people site in terms of the intention to use that money as a capital contribution. Sorry, Councillor Carruthers, the other paragraph, the 185?
3.11, Derek, it's the same item. 3.11, page 22.
All right, okay. Sorry, got you. No, I think the figure in my mind, I'll look to Kirk for absolute assurance, is 85 rather than 185. Just be clear about
that. The 185 includes two aspects. It's the 85 specifically for the travelling person sites, and 100 to do with grass cutting equipment and that, which will be used obviously to help improve the travelling person sites, but also more widely across the council area.
Thank you for that clarity.
Thanks. Ian Blake?
Chairman, that was going to be my point, actually. That's what I read. It was the grass cutting equipment. It may have been easier if 311 had been split, to be honest, to put the travelling sites and the grass cutting equipment in the same one. It caused a bit of confusion.
I think the point's well made, Ian, and I think that's accepted. Anyone else? No. I mean, this is pretty much a historical document, isn't it? And I think we move on to recommendations. We're asked to note the final outturn. In Appendix 1, the underspend. Note the achievement of the agreed savings applied 2016-17 committee's budget. Note the utilisation of policy development allocations. Note the transfer of the 35k to service reserves. And agree the transfer of the remaining 54k underspent in the corporate change fund. Are we happy to note? Agree? Thank you. Let's move on to item 8. Community facilities review. Our council is at the forefront of implementing community empowerment legislation, including our community asset transfer strategy, which makes it easier and clearer for communities to make a request for an asset. This report provides members with an updated position on the remaining 33 community facilities, which will either transfer into community management or ownership. Now, Harry Thompson is here with Karen Brownlee. Is Karen here? No. Harry's here. Just before we open up for questions and everything else, this is a strategic document, and I'm going to ask that if we're going to talk about individual facilities, can we speak to the ward workers in the first instance of Karen when she comes back from her holiday? Because strategic committees shouldn't be going into the nitty-gritty of individual places. Harry, have you anything to add to your report?
Nothing to add, Chair. Happy to take any question.
Okay, so I'll open it up for questions. Ian?
Just a comment, really, Chairman, in regards to a couple of individual cases in my own ward. But I won't refer to them exactly, but what I will say is that the ward worker, our own ward worker in Arndale South, is making a great job. I've heard different views in regards to ward workers across Dumfries and Galloway, but it's certainly helped me as a local member understand what's going on within the local community, certain aspects, and I think it's making it much easier, for me to fulfil my duties as a councillor in regards to this community facilities can be quite contentious at times, let's face it, across Dumfries and Galloway, and this is certainly heading in the right direction for me at a personal level.
Thanks for that, Ian. Sean?
Yeah, only comment I've got is just with regards to suggestion, maybe just an improvement for future reports when we get the updating. It's just in the area, maybe we could put the ward number in and also the location of the settlement.
That's a fair comment. Okay, that's no problem. We can sort that. Anyone else? No. In that case, we'll move on to recommendations. So we're asked to, 1, consider the progress that has been made in implementing the community facilities review with communities and management committees for 16 properties in Appendix 1 and paragraph 3.7. Great. Item 2, note the progress which has been made with the other 17 properties across Dumfries and Galloway whilst implementing the community facilities review for 2018-19 to 2019-20 as detailed in Appendices 2 and 3 and paragraph 3.9. That'd be great, thank you. And 3, agree to receive a further progress report to the December 2017 committee. You agreed? Thank you very much. Let's move on to item 9, developing the Dumfries and Galloway participation request strategy, report by the Director of Communities. The Community Empowerment Act places a new duty on public bodies called participation requests. This report presents members with progress towards the development of a participation request strategy and gives members the opportunity to discuss the policy intent of the strategy. I see Jamie Ferguson's here and is Liz here as well. Thank you. To answer any questions in the report. Is there anything to add, Liz? No, thank you. So I'm quite happy to move this to questions. Ian?
Chair, just concerned that perhaps legislation gives individuals the opportunity purely to frustrate the works of councils and other public bodies. Are officers confident that the means to deal with such scenarios?
Liz?
Yeah, well, assured there was a lot of debate in this and a lot of the conferences that we'd gone to early in this process where there was discussion about the fact that we could have, this could be a charter for serial complainers, as it were. There is some regulation around the governance of groups that can be participation request bodies. Really, they should be coming from groups. And where the legislation actually says that the default position is that councils will agree to a participation request unless they have good reason not to, The good reason not to is quite well defined. The group themselves have to put forward how they would actually participate and what they would give of their own resource and their time and their effort around helping to redesign services. If that isn't the case or that's not clear, actually the request wouldn't be compliant and we'd be cutting it at that stage. So there's an onus on the group to say how they can actually assist the process of delivering better services for our communities. There's also within the legislation other reasons why we can say no to requests. If it's genuinely felt that those requests are not advancing the aims of the community overall in terms of its economic development, in terms of social return, social outcomes, then we can also say no. And I'm confident that we would be rigorous in saying no where no was appropriate.
Happy? Yep. Okay. Anyone else? I think it's incumbent on us to actually see if somebody uses the statutory process of 30 days, we've actually failed in what we're trying to put in the attitude of the council we're trying to put forward, because we should be, how can we help people? How can we do everything else? Not just a throwaway comment, Jamie doesn't need anything else. So, no more questions. I'm happy to move on to recommendations. And that's one note, the background in relation to the participation agreements. Agree the project plan. And 3, consider and comment on the policy intent, paragraphs 372 and 384, which will provide the foundation for the strategy. Okay, happy to note all these. Thank you. Move on to item 10, developing commissions on representation and engagement, report by the Director of Communities. Our council has recently adopted an approach to commissioning which ensures that outcomes we want to achieve have been shaped and influenced by key stakeholders. This report asks members to agree the terms of the Commission on Representation and Engagement. I've got Liz Manson here to take any questions, and Jamie's obviously there as well, and Derek. Have we any further to add to the report? No, thank you. So we'll go straight to questions. Well, that's good. We'll just move straight to recommendations then. Can we just note the recommendations? Thank you. Thank you very much. I need to be careful of this bit because it's members' induction, not inducement. Report the Director of Communities again. As members are aware, at the end of our meeting today, there will be an opportunity for members to meet with the management team to discuss the service responsibilities of the Communities Directorate. This report outlines proposals to support the induction and orientation of elected members on the Communities Committee. Derek's here to answer any questions. Are we anything to add, Derek?
Nothing to add, Chairman. More than happy to pick up any questions, and as you've said yourself, we'll have a session at the end as well.
Ian, yep.
Thanks, Chairman. I think I'll probably make the comments. I think policy and resources and other committees, similar, almost a copy and paste report comes up to them all. But I think at 3.7.1, there's the 7 bullet points that are there. But just in general, I agree with them. But I think there should be flexibility around whether talk about site visits, meeting with directors, or different. Again, we meet the team at the end of this meeting here today. But whether it's in a group setting, individual setting, flexibility has to be given to the members of the council so that they can take it at their pace and allow them to get the chance to meet their timelines and so on and so forth. That level of flexibility has to be given, Chairman.
Thanks, Derek.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Thanks, Councillor Carruthers. Absolutely agree, and I'm sure all members would as well, that what's important is that we provide the induction that's best for individual members and suitable to their own circumstances, and be assured it's our intention to provide induction that's not just informative, but hopefully a bit of fun as well, and very much localised. So there's options to opt in and there's options to opt out, and that flexibility is key given a whole range of different circumstances that people have. And as I say, a part of that discussion can hopefully give us a steer from you informally when we finish after today's meeting, but fully agree with the points made.
Thanks. Anyone else? No. I'll move on to recommendations then. We're happy to agree the recommendations consider requirements in relation to development of understanding and agree a programme of induction and orientation is developed, reflecting our requirements and based on the considerations outlined in 3.7.1. Happy to note and agree? Thank you. Item 12, the Land Asset Class Capital Programme, report by Director Communities. Again, this report provides members with information on the proposed Land Asset Class Capital Programme for 2017-18, 2019-20 and seeks agreement of the proposed spend for 2017-18. Harry is here to take any questions. I would just kind of ask again, is that if it's not covered in the agenda, individual ward facilities, not if we can deal with the ward managers and the staff beforehand. But obviously, we'll work on what's on the agenda here today. So just try and stick to that. Jim?
Thanks, Chair. It could maybe be, my question maybe be put in the context of equity and future-proofing, if you like. I see in the report there's a reference to building a dry stone wall, and some of the other burial grounds have stob and fence, stop-proofing and hedges, and I wonder why we're no building walls as standard, because whilst we're under pressure with grounds maintenance, etc., we're planting shrubs that will require ongoing maintenance and stob fences that will require replacement over time, where dry stone walls tend to be a more permanent feature and probably a more acceptable feature in the general landscape at a burial ground. And the other thing is, are we sure we're in time acquiring land where necessary to develop and extend cemeteries in future? Because the last thing we want is a flurry activity when one burial ground closes and a new one opens, and there's no enough time to establish the new or extension in an appropriate fashion. And that will be something to be reflected across the region, I would think, and I'd be interested in the views of Harry and Derek on that.
Okay, Harry?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, the design features within burial ground extensions are really dependent on the particular characteristics of the burial grounds themselves. Not all will be appropriate for dry stone walls, and in some cases fences or hedges are more appropriate. So that's, it does depend on the ground under consideration at the time. In terms of future capacity, at the minute the main focus is on Dumfries. The requirement for new burial ground in Dumfries. There's approximately 20 years capacity left in Dumfries, but given the size of the settlement, there's a need to identify a large area of ground, and as members will be aware, there's not necessarily great land availability within Dumfries that has the characteristics that are required for a burial ground, particularly given SEPA's increasing stringency in terms of adjacency to water courses. So that's been the main focus in terms of moving forward, but we're happy to bring a report forward in due course, looking at capacity for the next 20 years across the region.
Jim? Yeah.
Chair, I'd be delighted with that, and I wouldn't want to interfere in any way with the management process, but if 20 years is the threshold for Dumfries, it should be the threshold for every place, because it'll still be 20 years no matter what size the population is before that particular cemetery is at capacity. But I'm more than content with the suggestion that a report comes forward, Chair, and as I say, I would not in any way want to interfere with the management process.
Thanks, Jim. We would never accuse you of interfering in the process. Sean?
Yeah, should we just to say that there's a list of the projects there in detail. What I was inquiring about was there was a project I was expecting on, and I will be taking it out with the meeting. But what we used to get in the past was, and I know we've got a lot better on delivering the projects, but we do have slippage from time to time with projects, and just wondered if there was a reserve list of projects in each of the categories, and if that could be provided to members.
We'll be looking to develop the programme for the next 2 years, Councillor. So that would mean that if there are projects lined up for next year and there is slippage, then we can bring them forward. But as you'll be aware, the main issues happen over the winter time when land conditions do make it difficult to progress projects on occasions, and that therefore makes it difficult to bring projects forward as well.
Thanks. So from that then, are we saying that if an individual ward member's got an issue, they should actually give you a shout?
Sorry, Chair. Yes, and what we'll be asking community assets managers to do is to issue a monthly briefing to ward members for projects within their wards to ensure that there's an update direct to ward members and they've got that information. Clearly, we'll bring forward progress reports during the course of the financial year to the committee as well.
Thanks very much. Andrew?
Thank you, Chair. Page 79, SDL Muir Cemetery, repair wall following collision. Would that not be an insurance job?
I'm not aware of the detail on it. It would normally be that we would seek to recover costs through insurance on occasions. If we can't identify the responsible party, then it becomes more of an issue.
Okay. Ian?
Thank you, Chairman. 3.5, just wonder if that money is restricted specifically to Dumfries, Annan and Stranraer, or Dumfries, Stranraer and Annan, I think as it's referred to. Some of the detail, I think, in general terms, I'll pick up on your point, Chairman. I don't want to go into particular ward issues, but Annandale, Eskdale, broadly around about paint rails and letter bins and such like. Just if you could explain it, I think maybe having part how we actually pick up where the actual work is being carried out. And the very last point on the appendix, in regard, second last, sorry, Powfoot, I think they'll breathe a sigh of relief in Powfoot if that work is getting undertaken. So just is there any further update in regards to that, because it's been delayed for a little while now, Chairman?
Chair, I don't have any further update on Powfoot. It's a source of some frustration to officers that it's taken so long to progress, but as Councillor Crothers will have been aware from viewing the site on occasions, it was significantly flooded. And I'm happy that there has been progress made now and the outfall identified, and hopefully that will progress very quickly now within the current financial year.
Chairman, just in as far as the question on 3.5,
just a second,
is that money restricted?
Harry, can we make sure that the 4 ward members are kept appraised of that? Yep. That development?
Yes,
thanks. Sorry to interrupt you, but yeah, okay, go ahead.
No, just questions specifically on 3.5, paragraph 3.5 on page 75. Looks like that money is restricted to Dumfries, Stranraer and Annan. Is that the case?
Anyone else? No? All right. Okay, go ahead.
So I think Ian had sort of made this point in the appendix. There's a number in Annandale and Eskdale, it's just under various. Sort of replace litter bins. Could we get some clarity as to actually if this purchased equipment has got plans to be used, or if it's just a case of putting it in storage so that it's there ready? And also just, I'll try and keep ward issues to a minimum, but in Lochmaben, just it's got clean of the monument. Can I just ask if you know which monument that is, and if not, if you could get back to all 4 of the ward members on that issue?
Thanks, Chair. I will ask the Community Assets Manager for the Annandale and Eskdale area to give a further breakdown, if at all possible, on the replacement equipment. I'm assuming, and assumption is always dangerous, but I'm assuming it's the Robert the Bruce Monument. However, again, I'll ask the Community Assets Manager for the area to clarify that.
Okay, that's thanks for that, Harry. No one else? No. In that case, then move the recommendations. We're asked to agree the funding for projects from the Land Asset Class Capital Programme 2017-18 reported in the appendix. Happy to note and agree. Thank you. Move on to item 13, the Viking Hoard. Again, the report of the Director. This committee has been dealing with the matter of the Galloway Viking Hoard for the past 2 years, and our continued focus has been to ensure the hoard is on display in Kirkcudbright. I welcome the correspondence from the Cabinet Secretary for Culture, Tourism and External Affairs and their proposal to convene a meeting with the Council and National Museum Scotland to begin a process of developing a partnership approach. The report provides members with an update on the position in relation to the allocation of the Viking Hoard. Again, it's Harry here to take any questions. Have you any update information you want to add, Harry, around that?
Nothing to add, Chair.
Okay, so we'll move to questions. No questions? Okay then, we'll just go straight to recommendations. One is to agree the key considerations of the representatives attending the meeting to be convened by the Cabinet Secretary. And the recommendations are the Chair, Vice Chair of this committee and the 3 ward members. We agreed with that. Thank you. Then we're agreeing the report to the next meeting with an outcome of that meeting. And then I would suggest any subsequent meetings with the Cabinet Secretary or any group or grouping or anything is put forward so that we can have this committee. And I'm actually thinking, looking at Derek here, we should have this in the agenda until the Viking, Hoard and the Cucubi Art Gallery are both operational, running. Should be a standing item on this agenda, even if it's just an update to say things are going ahead. Are we happy to agree that change the recommendations? Yeah, thank you. So that'll be an ongoing reporting process for that. Okay, so thanks very much. 14 is any other business. I've had nothing asked of me, so that's the conclusion. I'd like to thank you all for very positive contributions today. And didn't rush away. Let's see the senior management team. Derek?
10-minute recess if
Right.
you want, and then Rona will give them a briefing on Viking Hoard. Does that make sense?